Mr Speaker.
I call the Honourable Minister Chris Finlayson. Tēnā koe, Minister.
Tēnā koe to you and to our guests in the gallery. He's done that to me all day. He's upstaged me right throughout the course of the debate. But always, as you know, with Mr Horomia, with the best of reasons. I really welcome all those who are in the gallery, those of you who have travelled from Tūranganui-a-Kiwa to join us on this very important occasion. I especially recognise that great rangatira Nora Hania, whose immense contribution to our country through his service in the 28th Maori Battalion I greatly admire. I see him grinning up there. He gets very embarrassed when I mention him, but he deserves all the accolades that he receives because he's a great New Zealander. As is very clear, sir, this bill settles the historic grievances of this iwi. The Crown acknowledges and formally apologises for its breaches of the treaty, offers an apology, and there are various forms of redress which Mrs Turia has mentioned and I'm not going to repeat in my speech. But this day has indeed been a long time coming. The hearings before, were first made to the tribunal, the claims were first made to the tribunal 20 years ago in 1992. The claims were inquired into by the tribunal and it reported in 2004 and it's well established that the grievances that it found the breaches of the treaty were very serious indeed. Ngai Tamanuhiri entered negotiations with the Crown in 2005 as part of the collective of Tūranganui-a-Kiwa iwi, and in September 2008 signed the agreement in principle. And it's one of those unfortunate things that from agreement in principle to deed of settlement, sometimes the journey is very long because in the deed of settlement all the details have to be finalised, whereas in the agreement in principle it can be a fairly generalised document. So there's been a lot of work, an enormous amount of work between September 2008 and March 2011, a wonderful day, a Saturday morning, when Mr Horomia and I and other officials, Mrs Turia was there as well, were at that beautiful marae south of Gisborne, Muriwai marae, to sign the deed of settlement. And as Mr Horomia said, it was a very special day because we began it by helicoptering up to the top of the point and initialing the deed of settlement, and then we came down and the actual signing was on the marae. And as I said in my second reading speech last week, it was the first time I'd ever done it as Minister for Treaty Negotiations, but I read out the full acknowledgement and the apology, and one was aware that it was a very eerie sort of feeling in the grounds of the marae. And I said to Mrs Turia what was going on, and she said people were weeping. And one understands perhaps that's why I perhaps get very angry when I hear people diminish these settlements as mere deals in some kind of supercilious manner. They are anything but deals. They are very important acts that we enter into, Crown and iwi enter into, in order to resolve these matters that plague our past and then so that we can get on with life. And so it was a very special day, and I want to thank publicly the iwi for that day and for the way in which they have negotiated with me over the last 4 years. In the settlement, as I said, the Crown acknowledges a number of breaches, and some mention in the context of Rongo Whakaata was made by Mr Tirakatani about the trial being tried not in accordance with the standards of justice that people were entitled to, and then imprisoned in harsh conditions on the Chatham Islands for more than 2 years. And Mr Tirakatani marvelled at how the good men of Rongo Whakaata managed to escape, and the same principle applies to Ngai Tamanuhiri. I have to say I still marvel at it myself. I was over in the Chathams a few weeks ago, and Mr Tremaine and I jumped in a crayfish boat to go down from Owenga on the south coast of Chatham over to Pitt. It's fair to say, and it was a reasonably pleasant day, that the journeying could be described as interesting. And so I've no doubt at all that the courage and the determination of those men of Ngai Tamanuhiri to get back to Turanganui, our Kiwa, was truly, truly impressive. And the other breach that I particularly want to refer to is the act of the Crown in returning land and then promoting legislation which basically gave ownership of the land to individuals rather than to the collective, and undermining the ability of the iwi to maintain its property. And that is why undertakings have been given in the Crown deed, why acknowledgements and apologies are absolutely important and necessary. And Mr Horomia, being the good local MP he is for Ikaroa Rāwhiti, raised a number of points about sewage spewing out into the bay and affecting the iwi of the area, and well, the general population of the area. One important body that is established through the settlement is the Local Leadership Board, and I refer him to clause 43 of the bill. The purpose of this board, which will be made up of all the iwi in the area and also the local authority, is so that that board can contribute to the sustainable management of the natural and physical resources in the area for the use and enjoyment of future generations, while recognising and providing for the traditional relationship of Ngai Tamanuhiri and other iwi with their ancestral lands, waters, sites, wahitapu areas and so on. And I hope that that body, which is a permanent committee and must not be discharged without the agreement of the specified appointers in the council, will be able to start to address some of these matters. And he's very eloquently spoken this afternoon as well about the absolute need, following the passage of this legislation, for the Crown to live up to its commitments. This is not a one-off warm feeling situation. This creates a new relationship, and there are ongoing obligations which will need to be addressed, and he and I have talked about ways in which that could be done, and I very much appreciate his contribution. So this is a historic milestone for Ngai Tamanuhiri. The deed was the first settlement agreed between the Crown and an iwi from Turanga, where the Crown committed some very serious treaty breaches, and I agree with all those speakers today who have said throughout the course of this, of the four debates, it's important that people know something about what happened, and it is a shame that the media, which is quite happy to report the more contentious aspects of House business, hasn't bothered to be here today to listen to some of this debate, because it is very important. I acknowledge all those officials with whom I've worked over the years. The Office of Treaty Settlements officials work very hard on these matters. They're not 9-to-5ers at all. I've been in the office, in fact I was in the office the day before we initialled the deed of settlement at about 12:30 in the morning, because Paul James, the former director, had phoned me and wanted me to talk to the Ngai Tamanuhiri representatives about one or two matters, and that's the level of commitment that I've received from the Office of Treaty Settlements. I acknowledge Mr Horomia, I acknowledge my friends in the Maori Party who have worked so closely with me on this, and I acknowledge my other ministerial colleagues. So it is a great day for Ngai Tamanuhiri. It's not the end of it, it's the beginning of a new relationship, a very positive one. I salute you for all you do and look forward to working with you in the years to come.
I call the honourable member